most likely the work of suicide bombers. The death toll is likely to rise again as a further 186 people are confirmed injured, 28 of them in a serious condition. The blast, just seconds apart, targeted demonstrators as they were gathering mid-morning near Ankara's main train station, preparing to take part in a peace rally. 3 days of national mourning have been declared by Prime Minister Davutoglu this evening.
It was just after 10 a.m. local time when the first bomb exploded, followed seconds later by another blast, sending people running for their lives.
Right here, behind two banners, a bomb went off. We ducked. The second bomb went off there. There were two bombs, but the one that went up here was a very strong one.
Still in shock, some called their loved ones, while others tended to the injured. But for dozens, it was already too late. They had come to march for peace, but instead fell victim to violence, their bodies now covered by the banners they were meant to be waving. The attacks took place in front of Ankara's main train station as hundreds of people from across the country were gathered for a peace rally. The demonstration was a call to end months of renewed violence between the Kurdish rebels and Turkish security forces. The latest ceasefire between Turkey and the PKK broke in July, with Ankara launching its so-called synchronized war on terror, targeting both Kurdish rebels and the Islamic State group. Whether it's the Kurdish insurgency, attacks from the jihadist group, or simply tensions ahead of the November 1st elections, Turkey has been on high alert in recent months, and not just in the Kurdish-dominated East. Given the context, demonstrators blamed authorities for failing to protect the rally. Some clashed with the police, calling them murderers, before being dispersed by warning shots. The Turkish government has called the bombings a terrorist attack, but said it was still investigating whether it was the work of a suicide bomber.
And for more on this, we're joined now by our guest, Turkey expert and former EU ambassador in Turkey, Mark Pierini. Hello, thank you very much for being with us on France 24. Now, as we've seen, survivors of the blasts immediately pointed the finger at police on the ground. Was this type of terror attack to be expected? Should the rally have been better protected, do you think?
Well, it's difficult to say right now. I think this is a huge carnage. This is time for mourning. I wouldn't want to speculate on which ideology, which group, which interests are behind this operation. What matters now is really Turkey's democracy, Turkey's unity, and this kind of massive attack is, of course, an easy way to rip apart the societal fabric in the country, and nobody really has interest. We now have, in fact, in this election, two expressions of democratic legitimacy. The president last year was elected with 52%. This year, his party of origin was defeated in the legislative election 59 to 41. And the main emerging party is the party of Kurdish origin, ATP. Now, what is important is that these elections are held. They are held in a pacified atmosphere. It's good that the PKK yesterday had declared a unilateral ceasefire, and we just have, as foreign observers, to hope that every party involved would agree on the ceasefire.
But given this context of violence, because there is, of course, a time for mourning, but there is clearly also anger, can we have a fair and transparent election on November 1st, do you think?
Well, obviously, the tensions are running extremely high. The pain now with 86 dead and perhaps more is immense. But at the same time, I think all those responsible should resist the temptation of not holding the elections, the temptation of shunning the elections through a state of emergency, be it partial, regional, or national. This would be the worst of all possible scenarios. So I think bringing stability, bringing peace back to the country before November 1 and holding a transparent election is necessary. I was impressed in past elections by the wisdom of the citizens. And I think despite this kind of event, as atrocious as it is, we can count on the wisdom of the citizens.
Mark Pierini, thank you for having spoken to us.
Thank you for having me.
In other world news, Israeli and Palestinian officials seem unable to contain spiralling unrest in Jerusalem and the occupied West Bank. A week of violence between Israelis and Palestinians saw more clashes and demonstrations this Saturday, as well as 2 more stabbing attacks in Jerusalem. In the West, violence since last year's Gaza war along the enclave's border. Clashes between Palestinian youths and Israeli soldiers have left at least 8 Palestinians dead and 145 others wounded in the last 24 hours. The latest casualties reported this Saturday being 2 young teenagers killed by Israeli fire. Ms. Later, we spoke to our Jerusalem correspondent Iris Makler, who began by telling us more about the situation around Gaza.
The situation is that there were once again protests near the fence in a different location this time, in the south of the Gaza Strip at the Rafah border crossing. And there, initially I heard that Israeli troops were using non-lethal fire. That is ordinary means for dispersing a crowd. But in the last 2 hours, we have heard Palestinians reporting 2 youths, in fact, a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, have been killed, and that it was live fire. So Israeli forces reportedly using live fire to disperse that demonstration near the Gaza border fence, the border between Israel and Gaza. We have heard from Hamas that they are calling for something not actually in Gaza as a response. There's a football match between Cyprus and Israel, and they have called on Palestinians to come and disrupt that match. So as if tension in Jerusalem was not high enough, because that is where the match is taking place, there is now this added threat to the football match tonight, and Israel has put up the Iron Dome anti-missile battery in the south of the country.
And can you give us an update on the latest violence in Jerusalem itself?
Yes, we saw within the last couple of hours, we've seen a stabbing attack, quite an unusual situation. Police approached someone near the Old City, just outside the Damascus Gate, a 16-year-old young Palestinian. They thought he looked suspicious. They asked him for his ID. He gave them the ID and then pulled out the knife and stabbed the 2 officers. They shot him. This alerted other police. The city is crawling with police. This alerted other police who came in and shot as well. And the first 2 police, in fact, there are now 3 police injured, as well as the dead Palestinian. So it's a very, very tense city. I was driving by straight after, and it just feels like a war zone.
French Prime Minister Manuel Valls is in Egypt, where he met this Saturday with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Cairo. The men then signed a deal agreed last month for Egypt to buy 2 French Mistral warships, vessels originally ordered by Russia.